What's good, Hoof listeners? Welcome back to another episode of the Hoof Podcast, live on Thursday night. No Thursday night game tonight.
Yeah, first time. So all season long until now. So we can focus on what's ahead of us right now, which feels good.
Yeah, did you have a chance to watch the college football playoff games?
I did watch some of it. Yes, yeah. Not very. I mean, entertaining is something, but that Oregon game was painful to
Blowout.
watch. I'm not a big Ohio State fan. I don't really root for either of those teams, but I mean, Oregon was the team that I was
the
hoping
number
would
one.
have a chance to win it. Yeah.
And it's very interesting because, I mean, we're kind of warned about this. Like, hey,
Yeah.
if a 12 team plays a top 5 team, it's going to be a boring football game, right? And I think that's happened in, 6 out of 7. I mean, if you want to count the Georgia, that was kind of a blowout too, but a little more entertaining. But most of them were complete blowouts.
Right. And the teams you would expect to be there are the ones, all the names that people on the street who know little about college football would know are there, So it's not,
right.
To me, that's what sucks. The whole point of the 12 team playoff is to get teams in that aren't normally there. And it did do that this year. It was fun to see.
Yeah, it's fun to watch ASU play Texas, right? It was a good football game.
Being a Syracuse fan, I was like, man, we really had a chance. If we had won one more game this season, we would have won the ACC. We could have been right there too. We could have been that 12 seed or something. And
and I think that's what the college football playoff system does is it gives every team a chance, right? If it's top, because we've seen this, like the top 4 are always the same couple teams, right? There's probably 8 teams that cycle through there. Maybe you'll get one unique team, but you can kind of predict who's going to be there.
Yeah,
amongst a small group. With 12, it's like you can sneak a team in, but the problem is they're going to get their ass kicked.
It's
week
not going to be as entertaining. Yeah.
But I think over time, this is year 1 of this system, and I think it's watching Ohio State beat Oregon, who Oregon's the number 1 team. But Ohio State would have never been in the top 4 in the previous format. So and they're the better team right now. So there's a little bit of that. Also, I think over years to come, there's a lot more national publicity, being on national television in the moment. I think you're gonna have more recruits. That's spread across more teams, right?
That's what it's all about.
The parity will come. It's just going to take a long time. Could take 10 seasons.
College football landscape is changing quickly, very quickly, and it affects pros too, right? Because kids stay longer in college because they're making money there. They're comfortable there. I mean, obviously NFL is a big show, and those who can will go. But when you can stay 4 years, get a degree, stay cushy, and make money, and be the star, why not, right? And that's tends to be how things are going in the transfer portal and everything. It's blown things up. So
it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. It's like it's run like a true sports league and a professional sports league now. NCAA in general has changed. So yeah.
And they're like, who's the governing body now?
Yeah, there isn't one.
That's where it gets really weird, right? And the snakes are in, and tampering's happening, right? There's reports of that. So it's interesting.
There's no Roger Goodell to oversee things and be the czar and say,
almost need a
that's where we
commissioner,
shut it down. Yeah,
the NCAA needs to appoint a commissioner for just football. So it's really interesting. It's really fun to watch the changes, and it's exciting. I think the Final Four is going to be really exciting, and I've had a good time watching all the games. So
yeah, it's been fun.
But yeah, I mean, it's been a lot more entertaining than the game that's about to come up this weekend. The Bills Patriots. Mitch Trubisky getting some action.
Yes, yes, indeed.
Josh Allen will play a little bit to keep the streak alive, right?
Probably one drive, I'm gussing.
Yeah, why would you even?
Yeah, and avoid.
I mean, who else do you bench
at all costs?
We all know Josh will be. You don't want to risk Josh, but who else is
right? Right. I mean, I think the offensive line, a lot of those guys have earned rest. Right, you give them some rest, and that's a position where we're deep enough that you're like, hey, we trust these guys to go out there. They're not gonna. Suddenly turn into a sieve.
5.
Yeah, right. So you a couple of them for sure. Maybe Dawkins and Brown, the older guys, but and the more experienced guys. Yeah. So, you do that, maybe make them inactive or play them a series and let them sit or whatever. And then I think it's mostly going to be the guys we see on the injury report. the ones who have been hurt and, are a little banged up, it's at this point, it's like, nope, you're just going to not see time at all. And then obviously, you rest the starters as you go along. It's going to be a lot of whoever the practice squad call-ups are this week are going to play, right? That doesn't happen every week. And, whoever's on the bench and active is going to play, right? So, Kyrie Elam will be out there. I'm sure he'll be active and out there. And, the rest of those guys that have worked their way onto the inactive list as well will be active. Joe Andreessen, we'll probably see him get a big chunk of this game, his first regular season game. So, yeah. So it'll be fun to see those guys play. But the fact that the game is meaningless is, makes the outcome moot in my mind. What I do want to see is another player get a touchdown that hasn't already, passing touchdown, to break the record. We tied the record with 13. One more guy will make it 14. And, Reggie Gilliam still doesn't have one, so he can be on that list.
So what's that, passing touchdowns to different receivers?
Yes.
The record's 13.
We tied the record, and now one more will break it. So there's a few guys who could do that, right? And in a week like this, 90% of them out there are going to be guys who have not caught one yet. So fun. It'll be fun. That's the ultimate word. You're in a position you've earned throughout the season to say this game doesn't matter really, and we're here to get guys experience, and rest for the playoffs when it really counts, and make sure everybody's ready going into the playoffs when it really counts. And I will say that this was 100% my prediction coming into the season, that the Bills would have 13 wins, that this week 18 game would not matter, and that the Bills could still win it to get to 14, but my prediction was 13 wins, and that's where the Bills are at, and the 2 seed, right? I said that Kansas City likely with their division would dominate and be the 1 seed, and then lose their first game in the playoffs because they wouldn't be a good team. And that's exactly how I feel right now. The Chiefs are not playing great football, right? Not all year they haven't. And they're going into the playoffs. Now we know that they're the Chiefs and they'll step it up a notch, but I think they lose their first matchup in the playoffs. They've earned the first round bye, but we'll see who they end up playing in the second round. And the Bills, obviously, as a 2 seed, you have home field advantage until that AFC Championship game minimum. So, yeah, you've earned that as well. And now you get to play it out.
Yeah, and I think they're going for the division sweep here too, right? I can't remember a time that's happened. Maybe the Patriots have done it. Bills certainly. I can't remember a division sweep. Beating Miami twice, beating the Jets twice, beating the Patriots twice.
It's always tough to do in any division. Even when the teams suck, it's, you always, those are the most competitive games, the teams that know you best, the coaches who know you best. That's why it's hard to win a division in general, but also sweep a division. That is a big accomplishment. The Bills won every home game. That's another one. That's, you want to do that. You expect to do that, but it's harder to do than it's only the 3rd time the Bills have ever done it. So pretty remarkable thing there as well.
It is. And, back when we were preseason predicting the record, I did not predict a division sweep.
You did not
at home. No, definitely did not.
And I said, remember,
I think I had the Jets splitting. This is my big thing. Split one with the Jets, split one with the Dolphins. But clearly, if you could predict the Jets imploding like they did this year, then kudos to you, because you have to have inside information, right? Because
no, Eric,
you're telling me that Zach Wilson would win more games than Aaron Rodgers. I don't think anyone saw that coming.
I did, damn it. I'm right here next to you. You know that. I said it on this show that the Jets are the biggest dumpster fire in the league, and nobody wanted to listen to me in the preseason. And all those idiots who were picking them to win the division, I kept saying the same thing. How can you pick a team that is this bad, that the ownership sucks, that Aaron Rodgers is their leader and he's done nothing in 3 years in the NFL, that I even remember years ago before he was with the Jets, I said I wanted him to go to the Jets because he looked washed up and they would pay him lots of money and he wouldn't get the job done. And he's nothing but a dumpster fire. Aaron Rodgers, because he, from the day he got there, he doesn't show up. He does this. He does what he wants. He's got his retreat, his Netflix show. That's all more important to him than winning for a team. And when you bring in a guy like that, you ask your team for failure. And they crowned him their savior. They went all in for this guy, put every piece around him that they could, and now they're basically starting from scratch. They are the biggest dumpster fire in the NFL, and they were to start the season, just as I said over and over again. And now people are coming around to, wow, he was right about them. Yeah, because they are the Jets. Terrible ownership, terrible quarterback. That's not going to lead to anything good.
Right. And yeah. So that proves to be true. And you're always thinking back, like, why can't I make sense of the Jets' moves? Like, why are they doing this? Oh, because the 17-year-old's running the team. That all made sense once I understood that. What's that?
Madden. He thinks he's playing Madden.
Yeah, right.
Madden ratings.
Well, you have Garrett Wilson, but you want to bring in all these Green Bay guys. You're like, Garrett Wilson has so much potential. Anyway,
there's already talk of him asking for a trade.
Well, yeah, I think the whole team's asking for a trade at this point.
Exactly. They want to get out. The Sauce Gardner tweet.
The moves they made this year set them back 3 seasons minimum.
Right.
Best case scenario, they're set back 3 seasons, right?
Yeah. We were talking about it a little bit, but that's because next year now the right way to do it would be to hire the coach that you want to put in place.
Sure.
You're tanking next season. Right. Total tank season next year. I mean, you play for the heart of the game, but you don't have a quarterback. You cut the quarterback. You eat all the possible cap you can. You cut every guy that is cap casualty that you can in one season so that the following season you draft your quarterback. You really do a true reset. You can sign guys. You have the young guys you've drafted this year potentially and bring in. That would be the right way to do it, but they're the Jets. They're not going to do it that way. They're going to cling to.
The owner's going
to likely
take a political position, right?
Yeah.
So you have a new owner, new GM, new coach, and new quarterback. And this president's only going to be there 4 years this time. So in 4 years, you switch back. I mean, just the whole thing is just.
He obviously didn't sell the team the first time.
It's unbelievable. I need a 30 for 30 on just this season.
It's so funny.
Just this one.
It's
the dysfunction is completely unbelievable.
Yes. Jets are going to jet, man. Jets are going to jet.
All right. So not playing the Jets anymore. It was a fun game, 40-0. Easy Sunday.
I mean, it should have been a shutout, really, and it would have been, and that would have been so much more fun. But, garbage time for a full quarter when you have prevent defense out there when they're throwing the ball at your punt returner who doesn't play defense. That's, of course, they're going to get some. With still their starting wide receivers minus their quarterback, but still Tyrod is capable. So,
sure.
Very, very interesting.
Good to see Tyrod in Buffalo again. That was fun.
Yeah.
But really, I think looking at the division, since we're on the topic, I think Drake May and the Patriots are still look. You're looking at the future. Let's go down the road 3 years. I think the Patriots are competitive over the Dolphins and the Jets. Because of the quarterbacks you have, Drake May looks like he has the most potential, right?
Yes. You just can't screw him up, though, right? He has the talent. But if they do a true reset this season and they fire their coach and they try something different next year, you're just messing with the kid. Like, don't keep the plan in place while it seems to be working. And maybe they change coaches. That's gonna change his momentum and change the team as well. So accept where you're at. This was a rebuild year. Now you're building. Okay, what's the plan moving forward with this kind of guy, and who do we put around him, and what positions can we bring in to fill? And they could be competitive as soon as next year if they do things right over the Jets in Miami, who looks beatable now, and they're going to have a lot of offseason problems of their own. So, I mean, New England's in a good spot, I think, and they shouldn't blow the thing up because Drake May is making progress.
Yeah, that's a good point. And right now they have the number 1 pick. They've lost 6 games in a row, which gives them the number 1 pick for the draft next year. So again, you're looking around.
Mainly because the Giants won, and the Giants are. I mean, how stupid do you have to be to win a game, right? Like that was terrible of them. I mean, now they do deserve to be fired. Fire everyone. You won a game.
Beating the Rams to miss out on Trevor Lawrence, right?
Yeah,
you say what you want about Trevor Lawrence. He didn't really pan out to be the quarterback we all thought.
Not yet.
And if he went to the Jets, it probably wouldn't be what he is today. But when you have a quarterback with that kind of potential and you're 2 games away from the number 1 pick, you got to have a little strategy, right? Yeah. And I get it. You can't tell the players to tank. That's just not a thing. But you can definitely start the 3rd string quarterback.
Yeah, right.
Like we've seen certain teams do.
Yeah, exactly. They did that to begin with. They said, no, Drew Lock, we're going to Danny or what's his name?
Etling. Yeah.
So it was
Danny DeVito. Right,
yeah, DeVito. Right. That's his name. Thank you.
Etling did that too, I think, for the Patriots one year.
Tommy DeVito. That's his name. Yeah. Danny DeVito's the actor. Tommy DeVito. Yeah. But that's, they did that. That's the right strategy again. And they did the same thing. You stay in games, but you lose, and that's tough. But that's really what you wanted. Carolina's doing it the right way, right? They're playing really good football down the stretch, and they probably could have won more games, but they've lost them because that's what's good for the organization right now. So, it's been, I'd rather be the Panthers than the Giants, where they're like, yay, we won a game, and now we're
trending
no longer
up.
the first overall pick. That's not good.
Right. Yeah, but I think if you're New England sitting at 1, you're either looking at a good tackle, which I think their O-line's decent, right? They have no receivers. They drafted a lot of guys last year late. So that's somewhere I would look. But really, I think New England ends up trading out of that spot.
Yes.
Secure picks
100%.
for multiple years.
Yes.
They're definitely going to trade out, get a haul.
And it's going to be one of those top 5 teams still that make it up there, right? So I think that is exactly where I was in the offseason. Again, what I said was, if one of these teams that doesn't need a quarterback gets the first overall pick, you trade down and you get everything you can for it, because that is going to set you up for success in the long run when you already have your quarterback. That's the most needy position. You can still get the best tackle in the top 10, right? As long as you stay in the top 10.
Especially because the 3 teams after New England, I think, are quarterback needy teams.
Exactly.
Tennessee, Cleveland, Giants. Tennessee, the Will Levis thing's not working. I think your top 2. It's not a strong quarterback class. I think they're willing to trade to 1. Cleveland, obviously, all signs point to Deshaun Watson being out of there after next year.
Right.
And then the Giants, I think their strategy is clear. It's quarterback, right? So, New England has tons of leverage in the draft. Again, if they beat Mitch Trubisky this weekend, that all changes, right? Let's say all the 3-13 teams lose except for New England. They then drop to the 4th pick. And then I think Tennessee would have number 1. Again, assuming they lose. Correct? Yeah. So
that's right. So I think it's still 8 teams that could potentially switch spots, right? Going into this week,
there is
the
lowest
lowest 8
4
seeds.
and 12 teams, right?
Yeah. So if the top
9 teams,
the 3-win teams end up with 4, there's going to be quite the race for that.
Yeah,
those
it'll be a big mix up
for the picks.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. That's always fun to pay attention to the last week, as well as Black Monday, right? Again, we're on New England. I think they keep their coach.
I hope so. Again, for their sake. It would be better probably for the Bills if they don't, but for their quarterback and the competitive nature of the NFL, I think they keep him and they say, okay, he's proven enough with what progress we've seen. And again, knowing that
this
season,
1 year,
you weren't going to do anything this season anyway. This was a rebuild season.
Rookie quarterback year.
Yeah. And no
didn't even start him until halfway through the season, right?
Yes, exactly. It was a reset year to begin with. So the plan should still be the same moving forward. And now next year, if he really tanks and they really put things, then you decide to move on or not. But I think you give him a chance. You stick with him.
Yeah. And they're not a franchise that turns over coaches like a ton, right? I don't think they want to be that. All right, what else we got for this game? We just played them 2 games ago, so there's not much. Let's see.
They have a ton of injuries a ton of guys on the injury report. We know the
Bills or the Patriots.
The Patriots do. But most of them are limited. The big ones that did not practice: Christian Gonzalez, the cornerback, and then Jalen Polk, the wide receiver, who's been playing well down the stretch here, and their center, Ben Brown. So there's guys who are injured, but still could potentially play. Obviously, those are today's did not participate guys. The limiteds, forget it. It's half the freaking roster. But presumably, if you're limited now on a Thursday, you're more likely to play on game day. So, we'll see how it goes for New England and how they play it. Because like you said, the strategy for them is they want their quarterback to look good, but they really prefer to lose this game and stay at that number 1 spot ultimately. But if they win, then it shakes things up completely for that top 5. So, we'll see. It'll be interesting watching this game to see if they kind of take their foot off the gas a little bit to say, hey, look, we know we're playing backups, but it was better for the organization if we tank a little bit here and
get the rest.
Give up something. Yeah.
Yeah,
because we know the Bills' backups are certainly capable of playing well against this New England team. I mean, just the running back position alone, right? Somebody has to run the ball. Ty Johnson, Ray Davis, those guys could start on some other team, so they're going to be just fine, right? So the run game, that's
plus
just
you got
one
your,
aspect.
Monday the Bills will have off for rest, right? And then they're coming back and getting ready for a playoff game. They know they need to keep the intensity up, but the Patriots are going to Cabo Monday, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, the intensity might not be there, right? So there is no reason for them to win, right?
Right.
So it'll be interesting. But I think the Bills need to maintain intensity, and I think that's going to be the story, just so it carries over. You don't want to get lackadaisical, and then that carries over to the playoffs. That would be a disaster.
Right. And we know Josh Allen is starting.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll pass the ball once or twice, but he's definitely starting. So I think he'll play that first drive. And if he can get a touchdown out of it, that'd be great. It's time to, go to the next thing. So I would love for him to start that first drive, get a touchdown, sit on the bench, let the other guys take over, let Mitch do his thing. And again, he's a capable NFL quarterback. It's not like we're putting in some rookie who's never seen action before. So, and New England is vulnerable, so he'll find the spots against them. But ultimately, the Bills are probably just going to run the ball a lot.
Yeah, I would assume that too. Okay, 3 other things we got to pay attention to. The Bills have 31 takeaways this season, tied with the Steelers and Vikings for the most in the NFL.
Wow.
Buffalo scored 122 points off takeaways this season, the most in the NFL.
Knew that.
Buffalo's most in a single season since 2011. Ryan Fitzpatrick, 2011? I think so.
Makes sense, yeah.
Second thing, Bills are averaging franchise record 31.8 points per game in 2024. Second in the NFL behind Detroit this year. Most points per game in a season by an AFC team since the 2019 Ravens, 33.2 points per game. So that's pretty good. I think Josh definitely improved this year with taking the leadership role. You can put that one to bed. Josh Allen started 114 consecutive games, 11-25-18 to today, this weekend, which is Bills' record as well as the longest active streak in the NFL. The next closest is Jared Goff, who sits at 53. In those 114 starts, Allen has collected 256 total touchdowns, most in the NFL, and 29,589 total yards, second most in the NFL. So it's at 2018. Mahomes ahead of him for yards?
Yes, I would assume. Because
that's interesting.
Yeah, what other big yardage quarterbacks? I mean, yardage is one of those things that is so game dependent.
It could be anybody. It could be Goff, right?
It just, it's really just matchup and game dependent. How much were they throwing the ball? It has nothing to do with the impact of the quarterback. I mean, Josh can throw the ball 10 times and have 2 rushing and 2 throwing touchdowns, and that's way more impactful than if he had 400 yards and a touchdown and 3 interceptions or something. So, I never like it when people are like, well, they let in this. Even now, when the MVP discussion, we don't have to get into that.
It's just fun tidbits.
It's been done, but
it means little.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, you have to look at the impact of the games themselves, right? If Josh is sitting the fourth quarter or just handing it to his running back in the second half because they've got a 3-score lead, that has to factor into what ends up seeing at the end of the year.
Yeah. All right, so that's the Patriots. I think the moral of the story is we don't really care that much about this game, right?
Yes, yeah.
Which is a good place to be. You're locked in at 2. And the reason go ahead.
I was just going to say that's exactly where I thought they would be. And, you're happy that we are, right? So let's put it that way. I mean, and no, I'm not knocking you, Eric. We all know that my record prediction has actually been dead on the past 3 or 4 years here. I think we know that Eric tends to be a little more conservative and nervous about things. I remember the secondary, right?
Wins, you had 13. Nervous. I mean, it's the NFL.
Yeah.
Again, like I said, if you ask me if they'd sweep the division in the preseason, I would say no every time.
Right. That's the better bet. Gambling me is like, well, yeah, give me any team and I'll say that. I'll take the 3 teams in the division. They play 6 times. Then, yeah, I'll take that chance because division games are tough and well fought and know each other and everything else.
Well, they had some big wins in there. I mean, Detroit was a big one.
Correct.
Kansas City obviously could go either way. I mean, but Baltimore, I mean, I think 11-5 was a reasonable prediction. I mean, we're talking two games. It doesn't mean that much.
And still the 2 seed.
The NFL. I mean, things get nuts. I mean, you remember the Hail Mary game? I mean, there's always little games like that could go either way.
Well, luckily, the Bills haven't been needing to be on the side of that this year. We haven't had some game where, we won because we got lucky this year, or unlucky, like the Broncos last year, or, a couple of those games that we just put up stinkers or lost because of boneheaded mistakes. Now, we lost games that we could have won this year, certainly, even though there's only a couple there. That every game that you lose, you could say that, though. So, I mean, I'm perfectly content with where we are and how we got there.
Right. I think I thought the Jaguars game would be close. This is preseason when we're talking about this.
Yeah, I had that as a loss. They
won 47-10 this year, right? So I think Ravens, obviously. The Texans, we lost by 3. Bills did not play well. Easily could have won that one.
Very much so.
Either way. And then I thought going to Seattle would be tough.
Yeah, me too. I had that as a loss as well.
But Seattle didn't show up for that game, so that's just how it goes in the NFL, man. It's just you just never know. And the Bills have been on the right side of luck this year, it feels like, which is, we'll take it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the good thing that you and I have talked about on this show too is that the Bills are getting healthy at the right time, right? The Bills defense has been banged up, and they have been playing semi-cautiously with injuries, benching guys, inactive guys, right? The linebackers, the safeties, a lot of them have missed games. And now going into the playoffs, none of those injuries are, where they're not coming back. So we'll be at our strongest when it counts the most, at least in terms of bodies. And obviously you got to get the best combination of guys out there and the healthiest and the most ready to go. That's more important than anything in the playoffs. But being able to have that depth and the guys ready to go, that's a super great place to be in the playoffs. And I'd much rather be that team than the number 1 seed, feeling good about ourselves kind of team.
Well, that kind of leads us to the playoff conversation because I really wanted the 1 seed or the 2 seed this year, as well as the Bills have played. We kind of knew they'd be in that area. And we always talked about like Jacksonville last year. Hey, the division sucks. They should get the 1 seed, right? Well, that ended up being the Bills this year, which was so interesting. But and the reason you want the 1 or 2 is so you don't have to play Kansas City or Baltimore, right? So you're not going to have to play Kansas City, but it seems like Kansas City's like the winnable game this year in the playoffs.
Right.
Baltimore is now the team you don't want to play. And I think when we look at the scenarios, there is no way around not, playing Baltimore. They're going to play Baltimore, right?
Well, I mean, it depends on Baltimore's matchup, I think, as well in the first round, right? They have to get through their first round. And if they do that, sure. And I'm not afraid of facing Baltimore. We'll go through the situations here. They're not the scariest team.
Let's back up a little bit. Cincinnati still has a chance.
Correct.
Small chance. But, I mean, if we're talking the Bengals have to go to Buffalo and play in the wild card.
Yeah.
I think we're all really nervous at this point.
I mean, to an extent, yes. If you've watched the Bengals games, Joe Burrow is playing at the top of his level he's ever played. Absolutely. I've said that. He's been on my fantasy teams all year. Woohoo. I won 4 of my leagues, by the way. So I'm happy about that. First place in 4, third place in 2 where I lost in the playoffs.
Right. You do have a family, right? You do spend time with your family.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway,
you still have your family, right?
Joe Burrow's playing at a top-notch level. Their offense certainly is capable of doing a lot, but their run game is very limited, which means you can make them one-dimensional and can limit them, which I think the Bills' defense does well. And then their defense is just an absolute sieve. And I think that Josh Allen would absolutely tear that defense apart. And I know he would. I've seen them play, and I've said there's no way this team could play Buffalo because we would run and pass all day and control them all over. And if our defense falters against a really good offense like Cincinnati, they certainly have the capable of doing well. But I don't think Cincy's defense this year has the capability of stopping a team like Buffalo. they would have a better chance against a team that, isn't as potent offensively. But yeah, I just think with what the Bills have going, Cincinnati is a scarier team because of their offense.
Anytime you play Joe Burrow,
exactly.
The Bills have, and we've seen it 3 times in the last 2 years. They have no answers for Joe Burrow on defense in this scheme, right? He just tears apart McDermott's scheme. It is what it is. It got so bad at times they just man to man. We never see them play man to man, right?
So I think that the defense would be their undoing, the Cincies. Even if everything went well for them on offense, you're going toe to toe with Josh Allen and our offense against that defense. We control the clock, we control the game. You double dip, you do all that. Even if it's a high scoring affair, I still think Buffalo wins at home.
A close one, right?
Yeah. I mean, certainly. That's the most nervous I would be in the first round, without a doubt.
Yeah. So, you want the higher seeds so you kind of avoid this gauntlet, but it's looking like there's a chance it could be a gauntlet.
We should say you have the playoff simulator up right now.
I do, yeah, and I'm gonna.
So there's certain scenarios to get this layout right here. This is not the current layout.
No. So, what do you want to do? You want to play scenarios, or you want to just reset it? Because let me just go. Denver's likely going to beat Kansas City. Kansas City's benching a lot of people.
That's right.
And I think Denver's good enough to.
Yes.
They almost beat Kansas City the first time. I think they pulled this off.
I would be more surprised if they didn't win this game. Let's put it that way. And if they win, they're in. That's it. They're the 7.
Right. They're in. So, and then that's a favorable matchup for Buffalo. Rookie quarterback traveling across the country. But again, they're a good, well-coached team, right? So it's not going to be like the Miami with a backup quarterback or Pittsburgh last year. I think it'll be a little more challenging than that. But again, feel good about that game.
And they have playmakers too on defense, but that's the most likely scenario is that Bills will get.
Now, I'd say if Kansas City beats Denver, which wouldn't surprise a lot of us, Miami could really beat the Jets. The Jets are done, right? It's over.
Yes.
So I think Miami could sneak in even with a backup quarterback. If they win, they get in over Cincinnati, right? So that's really, again, feel great about that scenario. There's talk of him being shut down for the rest of the year. So even if they made the playoffs, you may have a backup.
Yeah.
They've been
a
bad team all year, it feels like.
But it's and just the chaos there in general, right? What's going on with our quarterback, with all these other players.
Right.
I mean, it just seems like their focus is not on football.
Waddle's hurt.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah, right. And it's the Miami Dolphins versus the Buffalo Bills. I said this preseason. I'll say it again now. I will play them in their house, in our house, on the moon, wherever the frick you want. As long as Josh Allen's the quarterback and Sean McDermott's the coach, the Miami Dolphins are not beating the Buffalo Bills. And, they have physically beat us in the past, but again, not with this team in these scenarios. We are their daddy, and they know it. So they're coming to our house. This, in my mind, is an ideal matchup for Buffalo because of all the reasons you said. The quarterback, the chaos. It's a division opponent.
Sure.
Everybody will say it's hard to beat a divisional opponent 3 times. No, it's not. Not in this situation. Totally different scenario. We played Tua twice this year, by the way. Everybody likes to sweep that under the rug, but I'm like, because they give the excuse, Miami had injuries, and if they had been at full potential, they would have beat Buffalo. Like, no, we actually played them fully healthy twice, and they lost.
Well, you beat them by 3 the first time, and then, I'm sorry, beat them by 3 the second time.
Crushed
them by 21 the first time, right? Yeah. So
I was at both of those games.
It's the same old story with those 2 teams, right? I think we're all familiar with that narrative.
And what's more interesting in these scenarios is the other seeds as well, of the 5 and 6,
right?
Switching there,
right. So Pittsburgh's interesting. I mean, if they beat Cincinnati, which is a possibility for sure,
certainly.
I mean, they go from 6 to 5. Baltimore's in a good position. They play Cleveland. We're going to talk about the line a little bit later, but -20, right? So
Baltimore very likely to win.
Right.
Yes,
but if Cleveland can pull it off and Pittsburgh pulls it off, then it's a whole different scenario, right? Because the Bills likely won't have to play Baltimore in that scenario, right? Because I think the Steelers can beat the Chargers in Pittsburgh, and then the Bills beat Miami. So really, if in that scenario.
That's a very ideal.
Steelers coming to Buffalo instead of Baltimore.
Correct.
Which, again, this is ideal. This is why you want the 1 or 2 seeds. So you can kind of avoid, the tougher teams, it feels like. But I don't think that's the scenario we're getting. I think we're getting Baltimore as the 3 seed, which means they would only play Buffalo if Buffalo won and they won. There's really no scenario where they would play Kansas City if they beat Cleveland, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Baltimore and Buffalo is a very scary game. So now you're potentially looking at Cincinnati and then Baltimore. And then, in this scenario, I think, Kansas City would play any one of these teams. I mean, the Chargers, again, they know Kansas City the best. There's a chance they could beat them.
Exactly.
But again, they always come up short, though, right?
Yeah, I know. So Baltimore's matchups, this is where I think it does get interesting. If they play the Chargers can beat them, I think. That's not a write it off type game. Baltimore should win that game. I would predict Baltimore to win that game. But still, if the Chargers beat them, like you said, as the 6th seed, presuming the Bills win, that would put them in Kansas City. And yeah, like you said, could they beat Kansas City? I don't care what team plays Kansas City. I think Kansas City loses their first playoff game because they're just not as equipped this year as the record says they are.
Right. And I think, assuming both home teams win, they would likely get Houston.
Right.
I don't think Houston
in this situation, but I think Pittsburgh beats Houston. Houston's the most beatable home team. We can all agree there, right? In these scenarios.
Yeah, I think
Houston going to the playoffs, they're so beat up. Yeah, so many guys hurt. They're not playing at their best level right now. They've been kind of chaotic over the last few weeks. That's not where you want to be going into the playoffs. They're the most rookie team in these playoffs when you look at like the experience and everything. Yes, they made it last year, but that was, I still think here that, they're the team to beat, or they're the team that's most likely to get beat. So in this case, again, say Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Buffalo win, Pittsburgh would be going to Kansas City, and that's a good game too. And so, I think Pittsburgh beats them too. So we'll see again how this all shakes out. I love these scenarios. I love it.
It's going to be so fun, but the Bills just have a tough road. That's my point here. And what's the conversation when the Bills lose to Cincinnati week 1 or Baltimore in the divisional round? What are we talking about now? It's like this storyline continues where they can't get to the championship game.
Yeah, you can't
getting fired back on the table. You know what I mean?
You can't afford to choke.
Yeah, we're looking at Josh Allen being the Phillip Rivers or the Dan Marino of his generation.
Well, you can't. There's so much more career left for him, but it's hard to not, as a Bills, it's as a fan, it's hard to not put everything in emotionally into every single game, especially when your team is good enough to win. We've talked about that 2021 playoffs and everything, and the 13 seconds and those years, it really felt like we were the team to win it all. It felt different. And this feels the same way, only now we're more nervous about it because of what happened the last 2 times. Yeah, when this new feeling of being the team that can win and knowing in your heart that if we get there, we're going to win it. It's just getting there and not choking when it counts most. I think this team is different and is going to, you can't put all your eggs in one basket. Is it possible the Bills lose? Yes. Is that the end of the world? No, but it's going to feel like it. And is Sean McDermott going to get fired? That talk will be there, but no, I don't think Sean McDermott's getting fired, even if he loses in the playoffs. And again, I said that in the preseason as well. It's certainly something that'll be brought up in the storylines and always not good enough. But they said that about Andy Reid for many years too. And then he got it done. So
yeah, I think you just got to keep knocking on the door. But again, it's just too hard to get here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's tough.
But it's fun to be in the dance. All right, good on playoffs. We're going to talk about every matchup. We'll talk more about NFC playoffs. But how big is that Minnesota Detroit?
Yeah,
game?
I see that. Yeah. I saw over there that you have Minnesota winning. Now, spoiler alert, I'm picking Detroit to win that game. So
well, I was high on Detroit Buffalo Super Bowl. This is the game I want to see.
Yeah.
But I'm leaning more now towards the Sam Darnold Josh Allen matchup in the Super Bowl. Both teams who have been to many Super Bowls but haven't won one. That's a fun scenario for me.
Yeah, right. I would love either of those situations. Not my preseason prediction, so we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
With the Falcons kind of faltering.
What was your preseason
down the stretch?
Prediction? Mine was
Falcons.
Philadelphia, Baltimore was mine. Again, we're looking. We were thinking the Bills are in a rebuild mode, right? Like they're going to be good.
My prediction was Buffalo. My prediction was Buffalo versus Falcons. And that was my preseason prediction.
Falcons are gone. Okay.
Yeah, well, in this situation, they still have a chance, I think, right?
Yeah.
If
I think Tampa has to lose.
Yeah,
there you go.
And then they're playing at home.
Or Minnesota. Yeah. With a rookie quarterback, I mean,
that's tough.
That's tough, yeah.
So, I mean, obviously the faltering down the stretch didn't help the Falcons. But now with these teams in, I mean, Philly was the other team that I was pretty high on this year. Still am. Think that they are still a better chance. Even than, Detroit or Minnesota, they're more experienced in the fact that, I could trust those guys more. And, Detroit with their injuries or Minnesota with the, unknown kind of situation. I think
it's interesting because
Philly has the edge there.
Philadelphia is the most talented team. I think everybody agrees with that. But you got to lay it all out there. I think they get conservative and, they try to control the game. You use the weapons you have and just destroy teams. That's kind of what I want to see for them in the playoffs. But again, with Minnesota, like the way Darnold's playing, he's throwing 3 touchdowns a game. I mean, it's they could sneak one out, right, against a really good team. Right? Because those receivers are so good.
And I mean, even in this situation, well, it's tough because if Detroit wins, where does that leave Minnesota? Playing in LA?
Yeah, I think they swap.
Yeah, they would just switch. So then that would be I mean, that's a winnable game for Minnesota, right? Because Green Bay would be the 7-6. Yeah,
so interesting story here. Sam Darnold going back to Los Angeles, right? The USC quarterback. The Rams have been good at times, but I don't think they're a playoff winning type team, right? I think Minnesota's way more is hotter than them right now.
Right.
I like Minnesota in that game. But again, with Sean McVay, you never really know, but I think Minnesota can match LA in kind of a shootout game.
Well,
anyway, we'll talk a lot more.
I was going to say, now we got to go through our picks to see what scenario plays out for us, right? That's the question now. What is the scenario where we are predicting who wins these games and what we see going into the playoffs after this Week 18 outcome? Always tough to predict Week 18.
Okay, I see.
Because of the teams that still want to win or want to lose, right? Now it looks like it's showing up there, Eric.
Okay.
So we're going to pull up the matchups here. ESPN Bet. Right.
And this is interesting too, because I think this is the largest line I've seen this year, at least.
It is. It is the largest of the year. Yes.
But it's Cleveland going to Baltimore Saturday 4:30 plus 20.5 for Cleveland.
Ridiculous line. I'm going to take the 20.5 just because I think Baltimore is up so big at halftime that maybe they start to rest guys. So I'll take that ridiculous points, but Baltimore wins the game.
Yeah, Baltimore wins the game by 14, right? Or 17.
Yeah, right. 17 maybe, yeah.
20 feels
just
high.
Enough to cover it. 19 just to make Vegas go nuts.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a big line for a primetime game, but Cleveland hasn't been good this year, which is so surprising as well.
Right.
All right, big game, Saturday, 8 p.m. Bengals at Steelers. Bengals are minus 2.5. Again, this is going to be a great football game. Really, like Steelers playing for the division, but really they're just going to swap seeds. They already locked into the playoffs. So really it's Cincinnati really going for it here. They have to win to have a chance.
Yes.
So I'm taking the Bengals just because there's more on the line for them. And I think Joe Burrow's playing great. Bengals have more to prove. I mean, there's a lot for them to play for in this game.
Well, this is the situation that I said does favor the Bengals, right? Their offense is electric. There's no doubt about that. The Pittsburgh doesn't have the consistency on offense, right? So that to me is that's what makes Pittsburgh vulnerable in this situation. The Bengals can go down and score on every drive. Pittsburgh, I don't trust that they can. Now, Pittsburgh has a really good defense as well. But again, you have to assume the Bengals are going to get it done on offense. And if Pittsburgh can do what I said earlier, make Cincinnati one-dimensional, stop some of their two big receivers, I'd say Chase and Higgins, because if you cover Chase, we've seen what Higgins could do in the last game.
3 touchdowns.
Again, won me a few fantasies, fantasy matchups. I think that in my mind, Cincinnati does win a close game. I'll take a -2.5. I think they win by 3. Pittsburgh's defense is good enough to hold them, but they're still going to score 28 points.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, they're playing for the division, right? They're not going to rest anybody.
Yeah, no, they're playing.
Yeah. It'll be a fun game. It's in Pittsburgh too, right? A little added advantage there. All right, Panthers +7 going to Atlanta. Like we talked about, the Falcons have to win to have a shot. They also need a Tampa Bay loss.
Yeah, I'll take Atlanta to win the game for the reason I said earlier. Carolina's doing things the right way, playing very well, but not winning games, right? They don't want to win and hurt their draft position. So I'll take Atlanta to win, but I'm taking Carolina with the points. I think Atlanta wins by 4, maybe. So 7.5 is a little too much for me.
Right, and I agree. I think the Falcons have a lot of weapons, but I think the Panthers have been playing better, keeping games close. And Penix is just getting his feet wet, right? He's made some good throws. He's looked good at times, but now there's some film out there, right? So that's always an interesting dynamic with a rookie quarterback. So I think this one's tighter than 7, but I'll take the Falcons. All right, Bills, Patriots. I mean, with the backups.
Yeah, we've talked about it. I still think the Bills win because New England is not going to want to mess up by winning. Drake May has a good game here, I think. But, the Bills end up pulling off the victory with the run game, strength of the run game.
Yeah, and like I said, the Patriots are going to Cabo on Monday, so how much are they really going to put into this? I think the Bills can pull it off with their run game. Like you said, they're deep at running back this year. All right, Jaguars at Colts. A lot of negative press on the Colts this week. Talk of blowing everything up. Talk about bringing in competition for Anthony Richardson. And I think Jaguars are on their way to firing a coach. So which one do you want here? +5 for Jacksonville.
I think because of that reason, I'm taking Jacksonville with the points for sure. This is a tough one because Jacksonville's one of those teams sitting at 4 wins as well. But I think Indy is just the better team, so I'm picking Indy to win, but I'll take Jacksonville with the Colts. Or with the points, I mean. With the Colts.
Yeah, I'm going to take Indy. Jonathan Taylor's had a series of really good games the last few weeks. And the Jaguars, I mean, Brian Thomas Jr. is going to get his. He's had a phenomenal few weeks.
Oh, my God. And remember, that was the player I wanted the Bills to get. I said trade up and get him. He's my favorite player in the draft. Yeah.
But I just think the Colts with the negative press, I think they come in motivated, whereas the Jaguars know this is their last game with the current regime. So, Cabo on Monday for the Jacksonville. All right, Bears, who have lost 10 in a row, are +10 at Green Bay. Again, this one, the Bears have just completely fallen apart. It's disaster on offense, at least. And then the Packers, I'm not sure what you're really playing for. You can get the higher seed. I think you can get the 6 or the 7. That's as high as you can go, right? Does it really matter? I think you rest people if I'm Green Bay.
Yeah, but I still think Green Bay wins by 10 points. So I'm taking Green Bay -10. I do think they might rest some guys going into the second half or whatever, depending on what the score is. But I'll take Green Bay there.
Yeah, I like Green Bay too. Bears just can't generate any offense, right?
Yeah,
in the
it's
passing
tough.
game. So I think even Malik Willis could, get something going. And Matt LaFleur is a great play caller. I think Packers win this by 10. All right, Commanders at the Dallas Cowboys. Again, with the Commanders, could potentially swap seeds. But yeah, Cowboys are out of it. So Commanders -6 going to Dallas. Potentially Mike McCarthy's last game. But again, there's nothing, just rumors at this point.
Washington, I think, is definitely a better team here. Dallas, although they've won a game down the stretch, is faltering. So I have to take the Commanders to win, and I'll take them -6 until I see, something from Dallas. I can't pick them. So can't trust them, even with the points.
Yeah, I think Dan Quinn was with the Cowboys, right? So a little bit of payback there.
And a remarkable story there too. Remember where we were at with the Washington Commanders to start the season. I was pretty high on Jaden Daniels as a good quarterback, but did not expect them to be this good and to win this many games.
Yeah.
It's amazing what getting a bad owner out can do for an organization.
Right.
So
yeah, it is pretty amazing. And I remember seeing the Commanders with Sam Howell early last year.
Yeah.
And they looked like a pretty good team, and he's having turnovers, and they were still, playing good football, but then they lost 9 in a row. As soon as the news came out that there was going to be a new owner, lost 9 games in a row. So I think they were pretty good last year. Just this year, they could put all the pieces together, the final pieces together to be a good team. So I like the Commanders story as well. All right, what do we got? Saints at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Saints are plus 13.5. Tampa Bay, it's got to win to stay in, right? If they lose, they're out. But if they lose and Atlanta wins, they're out. So they got to win to get in.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the Saints do not look good very at all. So I do think the Bucs win, and probably by 2 touchdowns. So I'll take the Bucs minus 13.5, even though that's a big number. Just the Saints without Kamara, without their quarterback. Yeah, this is an ugly game. So Tampa Bay at home, give me Tampa Bay.
Yeah, the tragedy in New Orleans this week. I think there could be some inspiration behind the Saints team. But again, Mike Evans going for their 1,000 yards,
yes,
right?
Huge.
So they're going to score points with Tampa.
Bank
so I think it's going to be a close game. So I'm going to take the Bucs to win, a close one by a field goal, and I would put money on the Saints here. All right, Texans at Titans. Texans plus 1.5. Going to Tennessee. Again, Tennessee, not much to play for there, right? You're trying to get that top pick.
Exactly.
Houston, you're locked in. Doesn't matter your record. You win the division, right? So I think we just take the Texans in this one, right?
Yeah, that's what's tough. Yep, same reasons, Texans, even with the backups.
Yep. So Tennessee really not great this year. All right, the other team vying for that number 1 pick, the Giants plus 3 at the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think we're going to get the Saquon Barkley
record. They've said they're going to sit him
versus the Giants, but I mean that would be a historic moment. But again, I think they're trying to get a Super Bowl instead.
Good for Saquon to say, yeah, no, I'll do what the team wants and sit. Yeah, most players would do that, but are the Giants actually going to win another game and be stupid? They could be, but I don't think so. I still think Philly's bench ends up beating the Giants.
Gainwell's he's good too.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
They can win with him.
Same thing we talked about with the Bills. Yeah,
it's a tough one.
Roster.
It's just too hard to be in position to break the record. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And here you are, and you're just going to say, nope, don't need it. But yeah, it's a tough one.
Playoffs is when it counts.
But I'll take the Eagles. I think the Giants are just too dysfunctional here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, big one, 425. Chiefs at Broncos. Chiefs are plus 10.5 at Denver.
Ooh, that's a big number because, I mean, we have both talked about where we think Denver wins this game, but man, 10.5 is a lot of points, even for, again, the Chiefs still have a good roster, right? So they don't have the depth that some teams do, like the Bills and, Philly, but give me Kansas City plus 10.5. I think even if Denver wins by 10, that wouldn't surprise me. So, yeah.
Right. It was a 2-point game last time they played, so I think it'll be tough. I think, I agree with you. I would Broncos win, Chiefs cover. All right, Seahawks at the Rams. Seahawks minus 6.5 at LA. Got to check the Seahawks scenarios. Don't think they can get in at this point. I think they're officially out. Even if they lose, the Rams still get the spot. So nothing to play for Seattle.
Tough
NFC
game.
won a lot of games this year. Like the 7 seed has 12 wins. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's So I mean, I do think this is a tough one to call because you don't know who's playing. I think Seattle ends up beating them, and it doesn't matter which sucks for Seattle. But so give me Seattle minus 6.5.
Yeah, this is interesting and a good conversation because if Seattle wins and Tampa Bay wins, Tampa Bay becomes the 3rd seed. The Rams become the 4 seed. So now, the Minnesota Vikings at 14-2 will have to travel to LA to play a 10-7 team. And it just and then the Washington Commanders, who are 12-5, we picked them to win, going to Tampa Bay to play a 10-7 team. Just seems backwards to me.
That's how these playoffs
go. A 14-2
right?
team should never be on the road.
Yeah, anyway. But that's how it goes. Win your division. That's what counts most.
Yeah. it's interesting, it's fun, but it just looks a little funky on the screen. All right, 49ers Cardinals, 49ers plus 4.5 at Arizona.
This is another tough one. I mean, don't want to win versus don't want to win. These two teams have had similar scenarios this year in terms of could have won to stay in it and lost games and had troubles with injuries and everything else. Give me the Cardinals to win, but I don't trust the points, so give me San Fran with the points.
All right, I'll take 49ers to win by more than
with the points.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they're getting points, so yeah.
Yeah. Good. Pick your poison. Cardinals have been frustrating. Like Marvin Harrison, they don't use him as much as they could, right?
Well, yeah.
Anyway, Dolphins Jets, meaningful football game. Miami wins and the Broncos lose. Miami gets that 7 seed. But again, I think the Jets could win this too. I mean, Tua's out, got a
quarterback.
Waddle's out.
For a game that is actually meaningful, it's embarrassing. That's what I would call it. Embarrassing for the NFL that this game is meaningful when you have a backup quarterback and the dumpster fire of a team playing each other. But I still think Miami finds a way to pull off the win, and the Jets are going to jet. They're going to miss a field goal in the fourth quarter that could have put them up, and then whatever, or it gets blocked and returned for a touchdown to give Miami the win or something. So Jets are going to jet.
This feels like a 10-3 game.
Yeah.
I think the Jets they're done. After that loss last week, I don't think they can recover from that, right? All right, Chargers at Raiders. Chargers -4 going to Las Vegas.
Chargers all the way. Raiders haven't proven that they, are on the right track to they're rebuilding, right? And they don't have guys out there that are going to be competitive, and the Chargers have been working their way up. So I think this is a, get right game, continue to move forward into the playoffs for the Chargers, and they get the win, which would help them if they're playing Baltimore, according to the way we have seeded it so far.
Yeah, agreed. And I agree. I think the Chargers win this one. Just no real answer at quarterback for the Raiders. It's just tough for them to do anything. No run game, really. All right, for the main event, Minnesota Vikings +3 at Detroit. Sunday Night Football.
Well, I already spoiled this by saying I'm picking Detroit. Detroit's at home. I think they find a way to grind out this game and win to show that they are absolutely the team to beat in the NFC. I think even if they find a way to lose this game and Minnesota wins, they still are the team to beat in the NFC. So, give me the Detroit Lions to win and hold on to that home field advantage.
I'm going to pick the Vikings. I think the Vikings can pull this out. Detroit's banged up on defense. Tons of
very
people on the IR.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you got Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison coming to town. TJ Hawkinson's healthy. Aaron
fire.
Jones is healthy.
Yeah.
So I think the Vikings have a lot of firepower on offense. And I feel like the Vikings defense could step up in this game, right? Stephon Gilmore
they've been playing well. Absolutely.
They've been playing good all year, right? So I think this could be a sneaky game for the Vikings to kind of showcase, hey, we're a balanced team. To me, it's really if Sam Darnold takes care of the ball like he has been, he had a couple mishap games here and there, but he needs to show up to this game, right? And I think he will. And the way he's been playing, I think, like I said, he'll have, 2 or 3 touchdowns. They'll probably get a rushing touchdown. I mean, I think the Vikings are in a good position to win this and be the 1 seed, which I don't think anyone's talked about all year. The Vikings being the 1 seed. Oh, God,
that's crazy. Yep, it's all in play. It's all in play. We certainly didn't. We were hoping for a high 2 pick, right, with the second round pick of Minnesota, but instead it's looking more like the Bills could have back-to-back picks with Minnesota's pick. So we'll see how it works out.
Yeah. No, I like the Vikings team right now, so that's going to be a really fun game to watch. Okay, so that's it.
And that's it. Week 18 in the books, ladies and gentlemen, getting ready for the playoffs where it matters most.
Just want to show
other
you.
football will be fun.
Based on our picks, I think we had a consensus on most, but if we did
Detroit,
NFC, I went with your picks.
Okay.
So here's our scenario. Whoops, forgot the Eagles there. There we go. This is what you're looking at. We already talked about all of this.
Yeah, right. I mean,
what's the best game? Probably Pittsburgh, Baltimore is the most fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel like Green Bay, Philly is a tricky. Good game to
Pittsburgh
watch.
Baltimore would be a fun one. Yeah, I think the Chargers beat Houston in that game, based on momentum and everything I talked about. But still, Pittsburgh would be the team going to Kansas City, and the Bills would get the Chargers in that situation. So, yeah,
I mean,
we'll see how that plays out.
No, I'm stuck. The Bills are getting Baltimore, and it's going to be tough, and we're all going to be nervous. There's a good chance they lose. Gotta be real about it.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I think I'm not afraid of Baltimore either. I'm not.
Right.
It's like Lamar Jackson in the playoffs. Has Lamar ever showed up for a playoff game? No. So we can end.
I'm not worried about him. I'm more worried about Derrick
Henry. You're right. You're right. He has, but again, down the stretch, he's older. We'll see. We'll see if he can replicate it.
That's gonna be a tough game.
And in the NFC, I mean, I see more. Minnesota's obviously going to be the favorite, even though they're going to LA. Washington could be a favorite in Tampa as well, which would be interesting. But I actually think Tampa at home is a bigger threat. And then Philly. So I would probably go there, right? Philly. I'd probably pick Tampa Bay and Minnesota to win, which would send the 5th seed Minnesota to Detroit.
Yeah.
So for their 4th matchup of the year, or their 3rd matchup of the year. I'm sorry. That would be interesting. Yeah.
There's a good chance that happens.
Love it.
But yeah, this Bills Baltimore, it feels like that's the tough game. If you beat Baltimore, the Kansas City game is going to be easier. That's kind of how it's felt with Kansas City. Like the tough game is Buffalo for them.
You mean
get to the championship and they win?
So in your scenario, if Buffalo, Baltimore, and the Chargers win, or do you think Houston wins? I picked the Chargers. I think the Chargers beat Kansas City and the Bills beat Baltimore, and then the Bills are playing the Chargers in the AFC Championship game in that scenario.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kansas City's going to make it to the championship. I mean, they're going to rest. Everyone's healthy, right? They got Marquise Brown back. I think they're gonna lay it all out there in the playoffs. That's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
I can't bet against the Chiefs. I'm just not doing it.
Okay. Bills Chiefs,
and I want the Bills to beat the Chiefs to get to the Super Bowl. I want to see it.
We'll see. Exactly. That would be the biggest redemption, storyline, and we would shut all the haters up that way.
Right.
So I love that scenario. Yes, give us Baltimore, we'll shut their down. Yes, give us Kansas City, we shut them down.
Really,
that's the way to be.
Like, how perfect would this be, though? Right? The Bills beat Cincinnati, they beat Baltimore, then they beat Kansas City to go to the Super Bowl. That would. There's no more narratives.
That's
narratives are gone forever.
That's right. Nothing.
That's ideal, but again, all right. That's what we're looking at.
Well, that's it, folks. Again, it's been a great regular season. We're going to be here all through the playoffs, so keep tuning in. And as always, thanks for kicking it with us.
Later.